Okay, so today we will start from this definition, and according to this definition, there are actually just three sentences here. And it starts with the penguins are flightless marine birds with flippers instead of wings. Penguins are included in the aquatic seabird class. Penguins look similar to seagulls as torpedo shaped. So there is one thing here that actually you can do. If you are writing your article and if someone has given you a content brief, as I usually do, let's say you also have a content brief, and there is something that we call actually next word prediction. Let me just explain. Next word prediction. So this is one of the NLP tasks actually, and if you want to understand the success of an NLP language model, you will actually need to implement these things. Next word prediction. Basically, we take a document. And then we, let's say these are the paragraphs in the document. Then we start to delete some of the words around the sentences or in the sentences, between the sentences. This is called language masking or masked language. Once you remove some certain words in these paragraphs, in these sentences, the next step is telling your language model is that now can you check and predict all of these words. If the accuracy is higher, it means that language is modeled perfect or better, and it means that actually the language model is able to understand the topic or the documents in a really good way. So there is one more thing here. Since we have an open source version of the BERT, we can already actually check how the BERT is defining certain types of concepts. And to be able to do that, imagine that I am using the BERT language model and I am writing a sentence like this: penguins are. Then BERT actually gives me all of the possible words that just can come after this section, after the R. And with different possibilities, we are able to take all these things. You can even actually observe the gender biases in language models. Because when I write, let's say here I have written, the doctor said X, let's say YZ, I have written, let's say, I have written a sentence like this, then I tell the language model to use a pronoun, and most of the time actually the BERT language model uses the he. You can even actually realize these type of things in Google Translate, and that's why Google always needs to actually modify their language models, because when you check the web, open web, most of the time the words doctor and the word he, they are closer to each other rather than the she. And because of this data bias on the web, language models also have some certain types of biases. So basically, if I repeat, next word prediction is actually predicting the masked words in the documents. If you are able to predict the next words in a correct way, it means that the language model is better. And at the same time, this might actually create a kind of bias because of the data that we have. And the next thing, the section that is more relevant to the SEO is that whenever you write something like penguins are, search engine already has all of the candidate words around this area, like penguins are evil, monogamous, or something, etc. But still, beyond these type of things, we have different types of candidates. You can even check NordVPN, by the way. With BERT, you can write NordVPN, and then you can tell is. And then actually the Google or BERT, let's say, they can give you all of the candidate adjectives, candidate nouns, candidate verbs that can come in this area. Why I am explaining this? Because thanks to the BERT, we have a new query template. Most of the time, to be able to search something, there are a couple of query templates. One of them is actually noun arrays. By saying noun array, I mean something like this. Usually we search here like, let's say, love movies. Both of them are actually nouns and they are coming together. Sometimes we have instructions like, let's say, play football, and this is actually an instruction and it actually reflects the purpose. And now we also have long questions, which is called question queries actually, and they start directly with the question forms like what is, how is, who is, etc. And we also have a new question template right now, and it is actually definitional incomplete sentences or incomplete sentence structures. Usually search engine call these things actually incomplete phrases, and they actually go like this. We usually use a noun, then we tell is, then we tell a, and then we search. So if I come here too, if I repeat it, if I write penguins are to the here directly, search engine actually understands what I search for, and they understand that actually I need a definition. Then they already actually give all of the possible definitions to me directly. By saying penguins are, I will just search this thing on this web page. 70 times nearly I have this phrase repetition. And usually some of them, for example, if you check this is object, this is concept. So this is an actually object to concept definition. For the newcomers, we have actually explained these things in the types of definition section. And here too, if I continue further, it says specialized marine birds. If I check the other sections or other definitions, some of the coolest and most charming animals, flightless birds, group of aquatic flightless birds, and again here we have said one of the most written group of birds, penguins are mammals, penguins are birds, etc. So always, after this phrase pattern, the penguins are, we always have some candidate words, and search engine already knows which one is more possible. If you need to write a better definition than all of your competitors, you can actually ask for what is penguin and just check the description area of these snippets. Whenever you check actually these snippet areas, you will always have the most relevant section of that specific web page to that specific question. And then the next step is actually taking especially the nouns and the adjectives, but exclude the words like exclusively or below or like the or some others. Once you take the nouns like species, like flightless, like marine, like birds, but exclude that, exclude live, exclude only, and some others too. And whenever you take all these nouns, then try to aggregate them. If that noun is accurate and relevant, then you can actually start writing your own definition. Another thing is that in your definitions, try to not use non-contextual words. What are the non-contextual words? Non-contextual words such as stop words, such as articles, or such as some certain types of pronouns, or any kinds of word that can appear in all of the topics. Because when you look at the word predict, for instance, or when you look at some other words in this area, like with, for instance, like some, or like for, these words are not contextual. Some of them are functional words, but they're still not contextual. If you use 20 words in your definition, try to make at least maybe 15 of them contextual and specific to that topic. When you take this definition, I use actually this word counter, ByteScout word counter, for instance, and this tool tells me that I have used actually 25 words in 3 sentences, which is good. The thing here is that if you check the words that I am using, nearly all of them actually contextual. For instance, instead of section is not contextual, the with is not contextual, maybe even looks similar to section is not contextual too. But most of the words that I am using under these 25 words, most of them are directly contextual and relevant to the actual attributes of the penguins. If you are able to increase the percentage of the contextual words, it means that it will be actually more related and more relevant. Usually, this requires taking more nouns from these sample sections, taking more nouns from all of these sample description areas, and aggregating them and then finding a way to actually using them under the definitions. For instance, I didn't use the word chubby, or I didn't use the word tuxedo or tuxedo clad, because they might not be that actually contextual. When I search for the tuxedo clad, let's say, actually I don't see any kinds of penguin here. So this thing is actually more related to do maybe textile, maybe style or trends or good looking and etc. but it's not that related to the penguins. It is just an analogy. Since it is not contextual, I won't use it. When I look at the chubby, again, the word chubby, I won't see the penguins in this area that much. But when I search for the, let's say, flightless bird, let's say marine bird, aquatic bird, or these type of things, eventually, at somewhere, I will actually see a penguin or penguin-like animals. So it means that actually semantically, this is closer. So while actually excluding some of the words that are bolded by the search engine, you will actually need to make this distinction. Of course, I am not telling you to not use these phrases, but at least try to use them after your main definition. So I won't dive into the definition of, or the function of the main answer and expansion of the answer or expansion of evidence. It is a later topic. But basically, if you want to have some practical examples or practical explanations for creating these type of definitions, you will need to ask this question. You will need to take all the descriptions. You can even use Python scripts to be able to do this. You can take all these sentences, put them into an array, tokenize them, then take all the aggregation of these words. You can even actually search all of these individual words or individual contextual words. Then you can even check whether word penguin appears there or not. If it appears, it means that it is closer also for search engine 2. You can create this filtration. Even with AI, you can just give these aggregated nouns and AI can actually write this definition for you after that point as well. So after explaining these definitions, before moving further to the sentence structures, does anyone have a question? Anyone? I guess.
I'm going to be silent the whole session, so I would encourage everyone to ask questions and take the opportunity. And I'm going to be stay muted for the whole session.
Okay, so I guess I assume that you understand. Okay, so when it comes to the sentence structures, so all the languages, they're actually different from each other. And usually we assume that there is no end to the human brain, to the human imagination, to the human mind. But unfortunately, even if the human mind doesn't have any kinds of limitation, even if we can actually imagine, think, combine, or draw or vision anything, when it comes to the linguistics, it always has limitations, it always has patterns. So in other words, we have actually limitless minds, but we have limited constraints for our languages. And when we look at these constraints, one of them is actually coming from the sentence structures. And any kinds of sentence that you have created, that you can create in your life, can be classified under these three things. You will always tell something has something. You will always tell something is something, or you will be telling something is doing something. You can replace this does with swimming, with barking, with flying, or with running. But still, it means that something is doing something. So any sentence that you can create in your entire life, and any sentence that until you have created right now, all of them are under these actual three main sentence structures. So why this is important? Because in semantics, especially linguistic semantics, we have to classify always. And let's say you are a search engine and you have taken 1 billion documents, you have taken the sentence counts, and let's say you also have taken the sentence structures. And if the questions, or let's say if the queries, yesterday we have talked about a little, just a little about query rewriting. And as you remember, question generation was one of the methodologies for query writing. And let's say from the word penguin, the search engine is able to generate 20 different questions. And let's say 15 of these questions include the word is or are, and it starts with the word. If it is a situation, the sentence, when you aggregate all of the sentence structures, It means that sentences that include the is a relation actually will be favored. So the purpose here is checking the possible questions that the search engine can generate, and according to the question format, actually using that specific sentence structure will be very much better for you. And when you look at the sentence structures, like has a, is a, or does a, these are actually association network definitions. As you remember, yesterday we have looked at an information graph in NLP. And in this information graph, if you check this section in these images, you will see that actually, let me just try to find this. This one actually says painted. In other words, something does something. It says is about. It means is a relation. If you look at here, it says is located in. It is actually is a relation, but plus beyond that, it's also something does something as well. And again, has lived, is born. So all the relations like here, is a, again is, or is in, or is a. All these relation types always actually can be classified under three main things. So in other words, the search engine is able to create their own information graph based on just these three different and basic sentence structures. When you look at the word dogs, there is always limitations that can appear after the word dog as a predicate. A dog can bark, let's say. At the same time, a dog actually have eyes, have tails, or they also have a strong smelling ability is a part of definition of being a dog, let's say biologically. So when you use these type of sentences, this one is under this one again, sorry, this one is under this one is under this one is again under this one, and this says is a, so it is under this one. So when you actually when you are able to use these sentence structures, you will be able to actually create better definitions, and you will be able to imagine your information graph in a better way too. And when you look at the is a or has a section, this is highly relevant to the actually lexical relations. Maybe later I can explain the lexical relations a little further. Let's put it here too. But if I be quick, let's say lexical relations or lexical semantics, let's say. And under the lexical semantics, we have certain types of relations. We usually know antonymy and synonymy, but there is more, like polysemy, like homonymy, or hypernyms, or also hyponyms as well. And if you have a search engine that doesn't recognize all of the existent things in the external world, after a point, you will actually need to use some certain types of phrase relations rather than the entities. So when you look at actually the word bird, this is actually one of the hypernyms that we can use here. So when you look at the bird, it is a hypernym for the word eagle. And when you look at here, let's say the red eagle. So there is a relation between these things in terms of hypernym. If you go upper, it is hypernym relation. If you go below, it will be actually hyponym. In this area, it is hyponym. And if you tell the relations between these things, it will go like this. Let's say red eagle is an eagle, and eagle is a bird. So this is the hypernym and hyponym relation, and we have actually more of that. And let's say now we have a beak, we have an eye, and then let's say we have talons. So when you look at these things, these are the things that actually an eagle actually has. And when you put the word actually eagle here, like this, the relation between these things is actually called, let me just write it here too. The relation is here meronym, and another relation here is actually called, let me write here, the homonym. So when you look at here, actually this one might be just slightly different. I couldn't remember maybe the word exactly, but it might be this one too. But actually it is called whole or holonym, let's say. Maybe I am not able to type, but it is called or pronounced as holonym, that comes from whole or being whole. So when you look at the meronym, or mero means the part, And the relation between these things actually has A and is A. And another thing is, of course, the relation of does A, but it is not about lexical relations exactly. The thing is, any word that you can find in a dictionary, they will always have these relations, and all these relations can be used by search engines to understand all of these things. And when we look at the set theory, now we can come there. Whenever you use the relation of these three, you are actually creating a set. So the set of things include things of the same type, genre, or features. When you say X has A question can be asked like, what are the other things that have A? When you say is, let's say X is A, another question can be, what are the others again? For instance, when you tell actually, let me ask it in this way. Let's say you are a search engine and I want you to create a relation type or relation association type between ice cream and between spoon or between soup. What kinds of a relation you can find between these three things?
You eat them with a spoon, and spoon is what you use to eat those two?
Yes, because if I ask you the question in this way, what is the relation type between ice cream and soup? You can tell that they are both foods, they both actually have nutrients, and you can create a semantic relevance between them too. And when you look at the spoon and ice cream, again, they are actually relevant too. But the thing is, they are under different types of sets. Whenever you find mutual features of two distinctive things, you can actually find any kinds of set relations between them. What can you eat with a spoon? When you ask this a question, you are actually creating a set, and the set is called the things that you can eat with the spoon. And in this case, soup and ice cream, they can actually have a place under the same set. And at the same time, the spoon, it is actually an eating tool. And again, I will need to open here, because this time I can write here eating tool, let's say, or something like this. And here we have the spoon. And this is actually, again, a hypernym and hyponym relation as appear in this area too. And in this case, once we have this relation type, we can tell that spoon is an eating tool. And what else? Let's say the fork. In this case, since we can't drink the soup with fork, in this case, some tools or some other foods won't have some common sets. And whenever you ask a question to the search engine, let's say if you ask it like this, AST, let's say this, the search engine already actually gives you a set here. They say Evander, Jack Nicklaus, Mike. These are under the same set. Now I will open one of the other language models actually from Google, and maybe you will be able to realize the things that I mean before in a little better. Again, you should understand the word knowledge graph here and the word factual in nature. At the same time, if you read here, therefore, models that can incorporate them carry the advantages of improved factual accuracy and reduced toxicity. By saying toxicity, they actually mean certain types of bias, evaluating neurotoxic degeneration in language models. When I say he and she differences, or any kinds of bias, any kinds of wrong information, any kinds of inaccurate information, it is actually called neurotoxic degeneration. And to be able to decrease that, we have a method that we actually call as text to, let me just write, text to text generating. And another thing is actually data to text. So when you look at the method of data to text, here you see a knowledge graph, a simple and small knowledge graph. We have a company which is called 10x10 Photobook, and this is its inception. These are the relation types, and this is the type of the organization, which is non-profit organization. If I tell you to create me a text from these relations, first it will be something like this, then it will be verbalized like this. 10x10 Photobooks, founded in 2012, is a non-profit organization. So this is a definition that we have done for defining this specific entity, and this is a knowledge graph sample or information graph that we can actually create from this sentence. And when you create this information graph, it means that the search engine can understand your accuracy even further. Because when you look at here, we have another knowledge graph, and it says, if I check it again, it says English language, the Shines, the Sport app, etc. They take the relations, then they verbalize it. It says, is the English language extended play by the app by the band The Shins in a year like 1995. Sorry, 1995, yes. And in this case, they have generated a text from their own knowledge graph, and then they will actually compare their text to your text. Once they do it, if they find that they are overlapping with each other, it means that actually you are accurate. If it is not overlapping, it means that actually you are just toxic, or you are just writing the wrong things to the search engine. And to be able to understand the set theory, you will need to understand actually these text to data and data to text relations. And whenever you have these data, you will be using this hypernym, hyponym, meronym, or holonym type, or antonym or synonym type of lexical semantics. And beyond that, sometimes you will also need to use these knowledge-based type of relations at the same time. And to be able to create a kinds of semantic relevance between any kinds of things, you will need these type of sentence structures. I have written here the Semantris. This is actually a game from Google, and it has been published very much before. Basically, this is actually a game for semantic SEOs. It says word association games powered by the machine learning. And there are two different games here. One of them is called Blocks, the other one is the Arcade. Let's go to this one. Basically, we have words here, like it says, type the first thing that comes to mind when you think of pen. And when we think about the pen, let me just put this one. When you think about the pen, what else? The paper is actually very much closer there, right? It's directly there. And when you look at the paper, it might be book. When you look at the book, it might be, let's say, the library. When you look at the library, it might be also related to museum. And when you create all these semantic relevances between these things, you will be able to actually understand the search engine a little better. Let's say pepper here. And now it says nice. And then they will actually try to understand a different thing. And then they want you to find another related word to the pepper. And it will go always like that. Sometimes they will give you two different words, and they want you to choose the word that is most relevant to the two other words at the same time. If you remember this embedding sample that I have actually given you here, which is embedding projector, basically this is distance between words, or semantic distance between words, as I show here. There is a distance between from norm to the inner to the prevalent to the customary, and all of them actually have different contextual relations. And with that said, let me just explain a couple of more things. Do you know what is the difference between semantic relevance and semantic similarity? Any guess?
Relevance with the relationship between two words semantically, while similarity is just if they're similar or not.
Yeah, basically, even if two things are relevant to each other, they might not be similar. Even if two things are similar to each other, still they might not be that much relevant. In some language models, they call these things semantic noise, because you can find two different words that appear always together, but they might not be similar. And again, you can find two different words that always appear together, but they might not be relevant at the same time. And to be able to understand whether they are relevant, whether they are similar, you will need to actually use certain types of semantic similarity algorithms or semantic relevance algorithms. If you check the word bad and good, they are not similar at all. They are entirely antonym. They are opposite of each other. They are actually opposite of similar, but they are highly relevant. Especially in the query semantics, the antonyms, like the word good, like the word bad. And it is actually one of the methodologies that is used in information retrieval. This is actually a book. I will suggest you to buy it. And the current Vice President of Google, Prabhakar Raghavan. He is one of the authors here. Another author here is Christopher D. Manning. He is a professor from actually Stanford University, and he gives still educations. The another thing is Christopher D. Manning. He is also a Google engineer, and he is the inventor of the Google definitions. If you are inventor of the Google definitions, it means that actually you are the brain behind of Google's perception. Because if you define something in a certain way, it means that Google will perceive it in that certain way. And to be able to explain it later, maybe I can talk about word sense disambiguation, which is entirely a different thing, but maybe later we can understand it. But basically, we try to understand which word has been used in which context, which meaning. And we have different samples here. Pen might be a writing tool, it means enclosure, it might be something else. And when you look at the semantic similarity as well, if two things are antonyms to each other, they are not similar, but they are relevant. And everything is, in query semantics, the search engine actually assumes that good or bad, buy or sell, big or small, these things are actually related to each other at the same level. In other words, if someone searches for, let's say, houses, the search engine assumes that the web page for sell houses is the same level of, it also has the same level of relevance for as much as the pages that just focus on the buy as well. Because when you look at the buy and the sell, they are like antonyms, but in the query semantics, they are basically the same. Because search engine assumes that if someone searches for buy, they will also search for the sell. It also goes for big or small, or bad or good, or dark or bright. Whenever you see an antonym, try to use both of them at the same time in a close way and try to unite most of these pages together. Because in query semantics, as I say, they are like nearly synonyms in dictionary, even if they are like actual antonyms. And when it comes to creating set of things, languages to learn easily, languages to learn easily for a teacher, languages to speak easily for a Chinese, all of these things are actually contextually relevant sets. And whenever you actually create a document, you are giving different types of sets. Already most of the product reviews, they are already actual sets, basically, like best TVs or best TVs for home, best TVs for school, best TVs that are higher than, let's say, 80 gigahertz, etc. Whenever you actually have a qualifier, you have a new set. And entire internet or entire knowledge base is actually different types of sets, but nothing else. And how long does it take to learn a language? This question actually tries to take different types of sets. So to be able to explain the situation here, I will need to explain you another concept. Don't worry, I will be quick. So it is called implicit question, incomplete phrases. The other thing here that I will need to explain you is actually a main question, or let's say in a way canonical query, which is a concept from query writing or query generation. So when you look at the implicit question, it is something like this actually, penguins are. When you actually search for this query, it means that actually you are asking for what are the penguins. And the search engine engineers call these things as implicit question. It is a question, but it's not that certain whether it is a question or not. When you look at the incomplete phrases, it is something like this. Let's say penguins. You can even use, let's say, penguin futures. So since we don't speak like this in our daily life, you don't go someone and tell penguin futures. You actually complete it. So this is called incomplete phrase. When it comes to the main question or the canonical query, it is something like this. Let's say, what are the penguin features or biological features of the penguins? And when you ask this question in this way, this is actually a canonical question. And this canonical question actually can represent also questions like, what are the, let's say again, biological features of penguin, or let's say also what is the weight of a penguin, and also what is the, let's say, speed of a penguin, and etc. So basically the question here, they also represent these ones, and in query semantics, these are called represented queries and also questions. So basically, when you have a main question in your mind or in your document, you will actually need to answer all of these things one by one, because at the same time, every question has some uncompleted things. Because when you ask actually, let's say, what is the speed of a penguin? So on land or on sea, there they don't fly, so we won't have the air. But even if you say on land and or on sea, we will need to ask a question like adult penguin, or let's say baby penguin, or male penguin, or the female, let's say, penguin. And if we go further, we will also need to combine these things, adult male penguin, or let's say adult male, but also old penguin. And we also have different species here. Let's say adult male, and at the same time old and king penguin. And as you look at here, the same question, a simple question like what is the speed of penguin, it actually has many different types of qualifiers. And whenever you have a qualifier, you are creating a new set. Like female penguins is a new set or a different set than the adult male penguins, and it is a different set than this one. And when you ask all these questions, to be able to answer these things, you will need to always use is a, has a, or does a type of relations. And whenever you use is a, it means that actually you are defining, whenever you use the has a, you are giving the parts of something which actually represent this relation, big I talon, meronym and homonym relation. And whenever actually you use does a, it means that actually you are giving the function or abilities, skills, or flexibilities of that specific existing thing. And again, it will actually create a different set. So if the set of things has a relative classification methodology, it means that we need a predicate rather than a definitional sentence structures. Let's say someone asks for factors to learn a language in 5 days. So again, I will read here, set of things has a relative classification methodology. Any guess what relative classification is? It's actually here. We are asking for a set. It says in 5 days. You have a numeric value in the query. So in other words, you can't create a different document for every number, like 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, 7 days. It wouldn't make sense. It means that the person actually asks for learning fast, like methods to learn a language faster. So they are actually asking for that, and you will need to take this relative number, like 5, 6, 7, 8, and you will need to actually match it with a specific type of predicate and specific type of adjective and adverb. And here the word faster, it is actually an adverb for learning, learn faster. And in this case, we are actually taking a relative classification or relative constraint, and then we actually use it for a different and more general and overall broader classification by saying just the faster. We need adverbs for the predicate, and learn and fast come together for actually making this relative classification or relative constraint a little more overall. In your document, you can continue to mention 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, but try to use this broader one if you have these type of relative things. So I know that I have already spent lots of times here. If you want, I can explain these things here too. What is a gene? What is a chromosome? What is a DNA? These are some questions, and these are some definitions that actually I have written by just checking the most important sections of the documents, which are reflected on the description area of the snippets on the SERP. And once I actually write these things, I realize that whenever I read a gene is a DNA, and I actually ask what is a DNA, then I read this thing and it says a unique molecule storing all of the information of the living organism to provide their genetic structure and inherited features. Then I ask, let's say, what is genetic or what is a gene? Then I read that thing, and then I see that actually the word DNA, word chromosome, and word gene, again, they will appear there too. So again, we are actually creating an information graph, and all these things might be different pages, and all of them will need to actually link each other by stating the relation between them. For instance, when you look at the chromosome and the DNA, the relation between them might be hypernym, might be hyponym. When you look at the gene, since a gene is a DNA, it means that DNA has a set and the gene is located there. Again, hypernym relation is there too. And you will need to use these type of relations while you are writing the articles. I can actually try to process this thing later. And let me check, we are coming to the end, don't worry. And maybe tomorrow we can handle multiple inheritance and some of these other things in this area. Okay, do you have any question for me? Any wish, any request, any complaint?
Just interesting how you came up with those definitions that you showed. Yeah, would be interesting to just see step-by-step process.
For the definitions of these, a gene or a chromosome type of things? You mean?
Well, yeah, as I understand, these are like examples.
Yeah, actually I have written some of these things while giving some other trainings. We can also do the same thing together too. Again, I ask the question, I take all these most important sections from the pages. For instance, here we have a predicate, it says carry, it says considered, and then here again we have some other things. By the way, as a hint, yesterday we have actually explained the difference between, not yesterday, before that, we have explained the difference between information retrieval and also extraction. If you see that the search engine, if they actually bold the word in your query, it is information retrieval. If they actually bold the specific answer terms, it means that it is extraction. And when you look at here, actually, they just bold continuously gene or genes. So it means that actually there is no feature snippet here that they serve. At the same time, they don't bold like words like physical, functional, heredity, or other related words. It means that they are not that sure from the answer. And that's why they are actually just bolding the related specific query term rather than the answer terms. If I search it like a gene is, or let's say gene is, let's search it like this. And now, for instance here, the basic unit of heredity passed from the parent to child. And this time actually they bolded the answer, and this is what actually we call as the extraction. And now we have some of these questions here, and I am sure that at the bottom somewhere, they might again use actually this specific plurality or singularity related things in these areas, or they might also actually try to mark again some answer terms. Even if they don't mark, again, with the sentence structures, you can actually find some of the things. It says chemicals come in 4 types, A, C, T, A. If it is relevant to your gene, let's say short section of DNA it says, and again, this is object to concept definition. Object here, this is the concept, short. So you can also use this relation, and you can add the word short at somewhere here, but be sure that always think about antonyms. If there is a short section of the DNA, maybe there is also a long section too, and you might need to make that research, and you might need to put that related things there as well in your definition. Does it explain maybe a little?
Yep.
And for that, any other question? Sibyl Mantas, I can't read that. Aurelia, I guess. Your last name is easier actually. Zamaita, I guess. I can butcher all of your names. If you want to ask questions, just ask. Anyone? I am in the meetings for the 2 hours. Still I am talking. So it's all for you. And if you want to ask, just ask.
Yeah, I think right. I think maybe some people need to digest some information. Maybe somebody will have to watch the video again. Personally, I would have to Google not a couple of but more things. But I think if, like guys, if anyone after this session would have any additional questions, I think just send it straight to Edmonds or me, and we'll just sort of maybe corral. Group it together and maybe write you a short email, and we have time.
Yeah, we can also do an extra session just for the questions as well if you want to list them. So probably in 2-3 lectures, we will be finishing these things. If you want, I can continue from frames. It's up to you, but it is another knowledge representation methodology which is connected or similar to the semantic networks, but still different. And it might help you to also imagine the relation types, or it might help you for finding some of these relation types as well. And besides that, I have maybe 5-6 more minutes. Povilas, if you want, we can also talk, because in the email you told that we can talk.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, sure.
I will be uploading the recording into the recording section. You will be able to watch it.